There is a quiet strength that lives within those who truly understand life. It does not shout, it does not rush, and it certainly does not waste itself trying to win every argument. It observes, it reflects, it chooses. When you encounter ignorance, foolishness, or careless behavior, the first battle is not with the other person, it is within yourself. Can you remain centered? Can you hold your awareness steady while chaos invites you to descend into it? The mind of wisdom knows this. Not every voice deserves your response, and not every situation deserves your energy. When you react impulsively, you surrender your power. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you choose your response with intention, you rise above the moment. Understand this deeply. People act according to their level of awareness. Just as a child cannot comprehend the weight of an adult's responsibility, a limited mind cannot grasp higher understanding. So why be frustrated when someone cannot see what you see? Compassion replaces irritation when you realize this truth. The intelligent do not argue to prove they are right. They communicate to bring clarity, if clarity is even possible. And when it is not, they step back without resentment. Silence in such moments is not weakness, it is mastery. Guard your energy like something sacred. Every argument, every unnecessary explanation, every attempt to convince someone unwilling to understand it drains you. And what you repeatedly give your energy to, you become. So choose wisely. Choose peace over pride. There is also the matter of ego. The ego demands recognition. It wants to win, to dominate, to be seen as superior. But wisdom whispers something different. You do not need to prove your light to someone who chooses darkness. Let go of the need to be right, and you will discover a deeper form of strength, the strength of inner freedom. And then, there is the highest path, leading by example. Words can be resisted, arguments can be dismissed, but a life lived with clarity, patience, and grace becomes undeniable. When others see your calm in the face of confusion, your kindness in the presence of harshness, your heart remains unbroken. Your silence where noise is expected, something begins to shift, not always in them but always in you. Remember this, your peace is more valuable than any victory in a meaningless debate. Your growth is more important than being understood by everyone. And your awareness is a gift. Do not lower it to match environments that do not nurture it. Walk gently, but firmly. Speak wisely, but only when needed. And most importantly, remain rooted in something higher than the opinions and behaviors around you. Because true intelligence is not measured by how well you defeat others, but by how gracefully you rise above them. To respond rather than react is one of the clearest signs of a refined and disciplined mind. Most people move through life driven by impulses, as if every word spoken to them demands an immediate reply. Every irritation requires a defense, and every disagreement must become a battle. But intelligence does not rush. It does not get pulled by every current of emotion. Instead, it creates space between what happens and how one chooses to answer it. In that space lies power. When someone behaves carelessly, speaks without thinking, or acts in a way that feels provoking, the natural tendency is to react instantly. The heart rate rises, the mind sharpens its defenses, and words begin forming before understanding has even had a chance to enter. But this is the path of compulsion, not clarity. Reaction is mechanical. It is conditioned. It belongs to a mind that has not yet learned to observe itself. A thoughtful person recognizes this inner movement and does something rare. They pause. That pause is not emptiness, it is awareness in action. It is the ability to witness one's own emotions without becoming enslaved by them. Instead of asking, "How do I respond to them?" the wiser question becomes, "What is the right response for me?" This subtle shift changes everything. Now, the situation is no longer controlling you, you are engaging with it consciously. Consider what happens when you react without awareness. You often say more than necessary, escalate what could have been simple, and leave the interaction carrying unnecessary weight. But when you respond with intention, your words become precise, your tone becomes measured, and your presence remains undisturbed. Even silence, when chosen deliberately, becomes a form of response far more powerful than careless speech. This does not mean suppressing emotion or pretending nothing affects you. It means feeling fully, yet choosing wisely. Emotions are natural, but they are not instructions, they are signals. And intelligence lies in interpreting those signals, not obeying them blindly. There is also a deeper understanding that emerges with this practice. Not every situation requires your involvement. Sometimes, the most intelligent response is to disengage. To not reply to provocation is not weakness, it is clarity. It shows that you are not available for every level of interaction, and that your peace is not easily negotiated. When you consistently respond instead of react, something within you begins to stabilize. Your mind becomes less chaotic, your interactions become more meaningful, and your sense of self grows stronger. You are no longer shaped by the unpredictability of others. Instead, you move with a steady inner direction. And others will notice this, even if they do not understand it. There is a quiet authority in someone who cannot be easily disturbed. Their presence alone communicates balance. Their words carry weight because they are not scattered or impulsive. They do not need to dominate conversations because they are grounded within themselves. This way of being requires practice. It asks you to slow down in a world that constantly urges speed. It invites you to observe when everything around you pushes you to act. But over time, this discipline becomes natural. The pause becomes instinctive. The awareness becomes constant. And in that state, you begin to experience something rare. Freedom from unnecessary conflict, freedom from emotional exhaustion, and freedom from the need to prove yourself in every moment. Because when you truly understand how to respond instead of react, you can respond with confidence and clarity. You are no longer living at the mercy of circumstances. You are living from a place of conscious choice. There is a subtle but profound understanding that governs a disciplined mind. Not everything deserves your energy. Many people move through life as if their attention is an unlimited resource, giving it freely to distractions, arguments, and situations that drain more than they give. But intelligence recognizes something deeper. Energy is sacred. Once spent, it cannot be reclaimed in the same form. And so, it must be directed with care. When you encounter difficult people or unnecessary conflict, the question is not, how do I win this? But rather, is this worth my energy? This single reflection has the power to transform your entire approach to life. Because the truth is, many battles offer no real reward. They only consume time, disturb your peace, and leave you further from your purpose. Choosing your battles wisely is not avoidance, it is clarity. It is the ability to see beyond the immediate moment and understand the long-term impact of your involvement. When someone provokes you, challenges you, or behaves irrationally, they are behaving in a way that is unacceptable and can cause you to feel uncomfortable or upset. There is often an invitation hidden beneath the surface, an invitation to descend into the same level of confusion. And the unaware mind accepts this invitation without hesitation. But a refined mind pauses and observes. It asks, what will engaging here cost me? Not just in words or time, but in emotional balance, mental clarity, and inner peace. Because every argument you enter, every explanation you force upon someone unwilling to understand, takes something from you. And if you are not mindful, you will find yourself depleted by matters that were never worthy of your attention in the first place. There is strength in restraint. To walk away from a pointless argument requires more discipline than to win it. To remain silent when provoked requires more control than to respond with sharp words. This is not weakness, it is mastery over oneself. It shows that you are not driven by ego or the need to be validated in every interaction. And this is where many people struggle. The ego whispers, you must prove them wrong. You must defend your position. You must show them who you are. But wisdom sees through this illusion. It understands that not everyone is capable of receiving truth, and not every moment is meant for correction. Sometimes, the highest form of intelligence is to let things be as they are. Protecting your energy also means recognizing patterns. There are people and situations that repeatedly bring frustration, misunderstanding, or negativity into your life. To continue engaging with them in the same way, expecting a different outcome, is to ignore what experience has already taught you. Intelligence learns, adapts, and adjusts. It creates boundaries not out of anger, but out of self-respect. When you begin to guard your energy, your life starts to shift. You find yourself with more clarity, more focus, and a deeper sense of calm. You are no longer scattered across countless trivial concerns. Instead, your attention becomes intentional. You invest it in growth, in meaningful connections, and in pursuits that align with your higher purpose. And there is something else that emerges from this practice: freedom. Freedom from unnecessary drama, from constant emotional highs and lows, from the exhaustion of trying to manage every opinion directed at you. You begin to realize that peace is not something you find, it is something you protect. This does not mean you become indifferent or disconnected. It means you become selective. You engage fully where it matters, and you withdraw gracefully where it does not. Your presence becomes more valuable because it is not given carelessly. Your words carry more weight because they are not used excessively. In time, this way of being becomes natural. You no longer feel the urge to respond to everything, to fix everyone, or to involve yourself in every conflict. There is a quiet confidence in knowing that your energy is aligned with what truly matters. And in that alignment, you discover a deeper truth. Life becomes lighter, clearer, and far more meaningful when you stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. There is a profound difference between seeking to understand and seeking to appear superior. Many conversations are not truly exchanges of ideas, they are silent competitions, where each person waits for their turn to speak, not to listen, but to assert. In such moments, intelligence is often overshadowed by ego, and the opportunity for clarity is lost. A truly thoughtful mind approaches interaction differently. It does not enter a conversation with the intention to dominate, but with the willingness to see. To see beyond words, beyond tone, beyond the surface of what is being expressed. Because often, what people say is only a reflection of what they perceive, and what they perceive is shaped by their experiences, their limitations, and their understanding of the world. When you seek understanding, you are not lowering yourself, you are expanding your awareness. You begin to ask, why do they think this way? Instead of immediately concluding, they are wrong. This subtle shift opens a door that argument can never unlock. It allows you to engage with the root of a perspective, rather than just reacting to its expression. But the ego resists this approach. It wants quick judgments. It wants to categorize, label, and dismiss. It finds comfort in being right and discomfort in uncertainty. Yet wisdom does not fear uncertainty, it moves through it with curiosity. It recognizes that understanding another person does not mean agreeing with them, it simply means seeing clearly where they are coming from. There is also a quiet humility in this practice. When you stop trying to prove your superiority, you free yourself from the burden of constant comparison. You no longer measure your worth by how much more you know or how quickly you can correct someone else. Instead, you begin to value connection over validation, clarity over victory. And something remarkable happens when people feel understood, even if only partially. Their resistance softens, their defensiveness lowers. The need to argue often dissolves on its own. This does not occur because you have defeated them, but because you have removed the tension that fuels conflict. In many cases, the desire to be heard is stronger than the desire to be right. However, there will be moments when understanding does not lead to agreement, and that is perfectly natural. Not every perspective can be reconciled. Not every mind is ready to shift. But even in these situations, the one who seeks understanding remains at peace. There is no frustration in accepting that others are where they are. There is no urgency to change what cannot be changed in that moment. This approach also protects you from unnecessary emotional strain. When you stop trying to elevate yourself above others, you also stop being affected by their opinions in the same way. Criticism, ignorance, or misunderstanding no longer feels like a personal attack, it becomes simply an expression of someone else's current awareness. To seek understanding is to stand on a higher ground, not above others, but above the need to compete with them. It is a state where listening becomes more valuable than speaking, where observing becomes more powerful than reacting, and where learning becomes more important than winning. And in this space, your words gain a different kind of influence. They are no longer tools of correction, but reflections of clarity. When you do choose to speak, it is not to overpower, but to illuminate. Not to defeat, but to offer perspective. Over time, this transforms the way you move through the world. Interactions become less about tension and more about insight. You begin to see people not as obstacles to overcome, but as reflections to understand. Even difficult encounters carry lessons, if you are willing to look beyond the surface. Because in the end, true intelligence is not revealed by how effectively you prove others wrong, but by how deeply you are willing to understand what they cannot yet see. Patience is often misunderstood as passive waiting, as if it were simply the absence of action. But in truth, it is an active, disciplined state of being. It is the ability to remain steady, while everything around you urges you to move prematurely. And when dealing with difficult or unrefined behavior, patience becomes not just useful, it becomes essential. Most people associate strength with speed, the quick reply, the immediate correction, the rapid assertion of dominance in a conversation. But this kind of strength is fragile. It is easily disturbed, easily provoked, and often driven by impulse rather than clarity. True strength, however, reveals itself in stillness. It shows itself in the one who can wait, observe, and allow the moment to unfold without rushing to control it. When you encounter someone who speaks without awareness or acts without consideration, impatience naturally arises. You may feel the urge to interrupt, to correct, to bring the conversation back to what you believe is right. But patience asks something different of you. It asks you to step back internally and recognize that growth, whether yours or theirs, does not happen through force. A patient mind understands that people move at different levels of awareness. What seems obvious to you may be invisible to someone else, and no amount of urgency on your part can instantly elevate their understanding. To demand that they see what you see at the moment you see it is to ignore the natural pace of human development. So instead of forcing clarity, patience allows space for it. This does not mean you agree with everything that is said, nor does it mean you remain silent in all situations. It means you choose the right moment, the right tone, and the right approach. Sometimes, the most effective response is delayed. Sometimes, it is softer than your initial impulse. And sometimes, it is not given at all. There is also a deep inner stability that comes with patience. When you are no longer in a hurry to respond or react, you begin to experience interactions differently. You listen more fully. You observe more carefully. You become less entangled in the emotional charge of the moment. And from this place, your actions carry more precision and less regret. Impatience, on the other hand, often leads to unnecessary conflict. Words spoken too quickly can create misunderstandings that take far longer to resolve. Reactions driven by frustration can escalate situations that could have remained simple. In this way, impatience does not save time, it creates more complications. Patience is also a form of respect, both for yourself and for others. It shows that you value clarity over speed, understanding over dominance. It allows others the space to express themselves, even if imperfectly. And it allows you the space to remain aligned with your own principles, rather than being pulled into reactions that do not reflect who you truly are. There is a quiet confidence in someone who is patient. They do not feel the need to rush because they trust their ability to respond when the moment is right. They are not threatened by delays or discomfort because they understand that not everything needs to be resolved immediately. Over time, this patience becomes a source of influence. People begin to sense your steadiness. They recognize that you are not easily disturbed, not easily provoked. And in that recognition, your presence carries a certain weight, one that does not rely on force, but on consistency. Patience also deepens your awareness. The more you allow situations to unfold without interference, the more you will learn and grow. The more you begin to see patterns in behavior, in communication, in the way people reveal themselves over time. This insight is something that impulsive reactions can never provide, and so, patience is not a delay of action, it is the refinement of it. It ensures that when you do act, your response is aligned, intentional, and effective. Because in the end, the one who can wait with awareness does not lose control of the moment, they gain mastery over it. There is a silent force within every interaction that often goes unnoticed, yet shapes everything: the ego. It is the part that wants recognition, that seeks validation, that feels threatened when challenged and satisfied when it wins. When dealing with difficult or unaware individuals, this inner force becomes especially active, urging you to defend, to correct, to prove. But intelligence lies in recognizing this voice without obeying it. To detach ego from interaction is not to lose your sense of self, it is to free it from unnecessary conflict. When ego is present, every conversation becomes personal. A simple disagreement feels like an attack. A careless remark feels like disrespect. And suddenly, the goal is no longer understanding or resolution, but protection of identity. You begin to argue, not because something meaningful is at stake, but because your image of yourself feels challenged. But when you step beyond ego, something shifts. You begin to see interactions for what they are, not for how they make you feel about yourself. Words spoken by others are no longer taken as measures of your worth, but as reflections of their own perspective, their own state of awareness. This detachment creates clarity. You no longer feel the need to respond to every opinion or correct every misunderstanding. You recognize that your value is not determined by whether others agree with you. And because of this, your responses become lighter, more thoughtful, and far less reactive. The ego seeks control. It wants to shape how others see you, how they respond to you, how they acknowledge you. But this desire for control often leads to frustration, because people do not always respond in the ways we expect or desire. When you release this need, you also release the tension that comes with it. You begin to engage without attachment to outcome. This is where true freedom emerges. You can speak your truth without needing it to be accepted. You can listen without feeling diminished. You can walk away without feeling defeated. Your sense of self remains intact, not because it is constantly defended, but because it is no longer dependent on external validation. Detaching ego also allows you to handle ignorance with grace. Instead of feeling insulted or provoked, you observe. You understand that when someone speaks from a place of limitation, it is not a reflection of your inadequacy, it is an expression of their current level of awareness. And once you see this clearly, there is nothing left to defend. There is also a deeper peace that comes with this state. The constant inner noise, the need to be right, to be seen, to be acknowledged begins to quiet. You are no longer pulled into unnecessary debates or emotional turbulence. Your mind becomes more still, more focused, more aligned with what truly matters. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent. You still have opinions, values, and boundaries, but they are no longer driven by ego. They are grounded in understanding. When you choose to speak, it is not to elevate yourself above others, but to express something meaningful. And when you choose silence, it is not out of defeat, but out of clarity. Over time, this detachment transforms the way others experience you. There is a certain ease in your presence, a lack of tension that people can feel even if they cannot explain it. You are not trying to impress, not trying to dominate, not trying to control. And in that absence, there is authenticity. You become less concerned with how you are perceived and more aligned with how you live. Your actions reflect your principles, not your insecurities. And because of this, your confidence becomes quiet but unshakable. Detaching ego is not about losing identity, it is about refining it. It is about removing the layers of defensiveness and comparison that distort your true nature. And in doing so, you discover a deeper strength, one that does not need to prove itself, because it simply is. There is a level of influence that words alone can never reach. It is quiet, steady, and often unnoticed in the moment, but over time, it shapes perceptions, shifts attitudes, and leaves a lasting imprint. This influence comes not from argument, but from example. Many people believe that to change others, they must explain, correct, or convince. They rely on logic, on persuasion, on repeated effort to make someone see what they see. But this approach has its limits. Words can be resisted, advice can be ignored, arguments can be dismissed, and when someone is not ready to understand, no amount of explanation will force clarity into their mind. But a lived example is different. When you embody patience in the presence of impatience, when you remain calm in the face of chaos, you will find that patience is the key to unlocking your full potential. When you respond with thoughtfulness, instead of impulse, you communicate something far deeper than words. You demonstrate what is possible without needing to declare it. And this kind of demonstration carries a subtle authority that cannot be easily rejected. Leading by example requires consistency. It is not about acting wisely once or twice, but about aligning your behavior with your values again and again, especially when it is difficult. It is easy to speak about patience, but much harder to practice it when tested. It is easy to value calmness, but much harder to maintain it when provoked. And yet, it is in these very moments that your example becomes most powerful. Because people observe more than they admit. They notice how you handle pressure, how you respond to disrespect, how you carry yourself when things do not go your way. Even if they do not immediately acknowledge it, your actions leave an impression. And over time, that impression can influence them in ways that direct instruction never could. This approach also removes the burden of trying to control others. You no longer feel responsible for changing every mindset or correcting every behavior. Instead, you focus on what is within your reach, your own actions, your own responses, your own way of being. And in doing so, you create a standard, not through force, but through presence. There is also quiet humility in leading this way. You are not positioning yourself above others as a teacher or authority. You are simply living in alignment with what you understand to be true. There is no need to announce it, no need to draw attention to it. The example speaks for itself, and perhaps the most important aspect of this path is that it transforms you first. When you commit to living what you believe, your awareness deepens, your discipline strengthens, your actions become more intentional. You begin to close the gap between what you know and how you live, and in that alignment, there is integrity. This integrity is what gives your example its power. Without it, even the best words lose their impact. But with it, even silence becomes meaningful. A single action, done with clarity and consistency, can carry more weight than countless explanations. There will be times when your example is not immediately understood or appreciated. Some may overlook it, others may misinterpret it. But influence is not always immediate. It unfolds over time, often in ways you cannot see. What matters is not how quickly others change, but how steadily you remain aligned with your principles. And in this steadiness, something profound begins to happen. You become less focused on the behavior of others and more rooted in your own path. External noise loses its grip on you. Your direction becomes clearer, your presence more grounded. Because when you lead by example, you are no longer trying to win people over. You are showing them a different way to exist.